Hey everybody, this is Kohdok here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a quick little game. This was actually brought up to me by a number of viewers after I did the Seven Deadly Sins episode on life decking. A number of people brought up a game made in Chile called Mitos Y Leyendas. So this is a game that it does fall under the sin of sort of having unfiltered life decking, but it did prove to be really popular in Latin America. Like I said, in Chile and around South America and Central America. It did really well. One of the reasons, to my understanding, is that it was in Latin America cheaper to get than cards like Magic the Gathering, and that's because the cards were actually printed and made in Chile itself. However, the original company that made this game, Salo, actually went out of business, and I haven't been able to find any cards from the newer edition. I've found like one store on eBay that's based in Puerto Rico, but hasn't responded to any of my emails. So, anyway, Mitos y Leyendas, it's a trading card game that's basically based on all sorts of, historical myths and legends, appropriately enough. So you have a lot of cards based on gods of different religions or heroes from old fairy tales or stories, perhaps with a bit of a gothic horror edge. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting game, and like I said, it is a life decking game, and it has a couple of interesting things about it. From a flavor standpoint, I like that they refer to your deck in this game as the castle. So even though it's a life decking game, they don't say it's like, oh, the monsters come up and hit you in the face like Magic the Gathering and so many of its copycats would say. Instead, when the monsters deal damage to you, they're ransacking your castle. They're stealing treasure and burning employment contracts, I guess, in the case of the monsters. But it from a flavor standpoint, it works really well. There are also some pretty cool rules about this game in that you don't actually turn cards sideways to determine things like paying costs and other card effects. You actually, what happens is you actually move cards from one section of the board to another. Like you pay with a resource called gold, and those summon your costs. So you take the gold you've used for the turn and you actually move it into a separate stack. And with the monsters, you have your defense area and your attack area. And in order to attack with a monster, you move it out to your attack area, which means you can't be used to defend on your next turn. So, pretty good, straightforward stuff. And like I said, it's primarily as a Latin American game. It didn't really manage to get out of Latin America, although, thankfully for us, an attempt was made. There was an English version, appropriately enough called Myths and Legends, which came out in 2004 using the fourth set Brotherhood, also known as La Cofradia, for those of you who talk about the original. This Mitos y Leyendas card was actually a test print for this 2004 attempted release. It's a promo version of one of the stronger cards in this set named Inti, although the final English version is actually has slightly different stats. Here's your cost and your power up here. So this, the real Inti costs a bit more and is less powerful because his effect, basically he comes into play, he blows up two of your opponent's gold cards, which is like blowing up two lands in Magic the Gathering. So, yeah, Myths and Legends has, it did get a release, although it did not get terribly far in its release, mainly because it didn't get terribly far in its release. I have a few theories as to why. But because it did not get too far in 2004, it means that actually getting the cards are pretty cheap. So if you want English language versions of these cards, just make sure you look it up as Myths and Legends rather than Mitos y Leyendas. I was able to get a bunch of cards for pretty cheap. Like, they have like booster boxes and starter boxes for like 20 a piece. Not the decks, but full-on boxes of like 12 decks. So it's pretty easy to get the cards you want. Now, the Mitos y Leyendas cards, they come in four flavors. You have your creatures. Can't quite entirely remember what they're called. It's one of the few cards that doesn't have the card type written on it. But yeah, these are they can be gods, they can be mere mortals, they could Let's see, do I have him here? They could even be a guy named Carl. Hi there, I'm Carl. I can't say I'm a fan of this font, though. The font that they chose for writing the names, especially when you get the rare foil cards. It's a little hard to read these on occasion, but they come in 4 flavors. You of course have the creatures. You have talismans, which are the equivalent of the spells. You have the totems, which behave like global enchantments. And then you have the weapon cards. The weapon cards, they behave like equipment. They're more like, they're kind of like enchantment auras. I especially love the artwork for this card. It's like, you better not get any closer, man. I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but you don't want to know what I'm going to do with this, man. That's hilarious. So yeah, some pretty striking art from here. And like I said, it's to my understanding, like all of this work, the artwork, the design, and even the printing was all done in Chile. Like, I actually saw a video where they were showing the card press, and they had this basic alignment tool that was literally like a cut up 2x4. And I just think, I got these cards, and they were probably made using that setup. It's actually kind of amazing. So why did it not do so well in the United States? I said I had a couple of minor theories. One of them is that the early to mid 2000s, there were just so many card games going on that it's entirely likely that Mitos Y Leyendas also got kind of lost in the lurch. That is possible. It also kind of breaks a couple of taboos on putting out card games in the United States, and those 2 things are portraying religious iconography and cleavage. America is a notoriously pearl-clutching culture, to the point where we still have somebody employed who censors the artwork for Dark Magician Girl, any depiction, because, the cleavage and the Judeo-Christian iconography are literally in the same place on this card. I am very familiar with the fact that there is a lot of debate on how far your card art is allowed to go, or the things you're allowed to depict. I don't really have strong opinions on having somewhat racy artwork, but I do have a more tempered opinion. My opinion is, do remember that when you're designing your cards, you are asking these people to play your card game in public with complete strangers. That's literally what a tournament is. And if somebody walks in and they're checking out the games in the place, and they say, "Hey, what game is this?" and they look at your cards, and there's some lady with her fanny sticking out, they're like, "Oh, it's one of those weirdo games. Let's move on." So something to keep in mind. Although, like I said, I know that in America, these sorts of designs are clutched a lot harder than they are even in Latin America. So, although, like I said, it is a life decking game, a kind of unfiltered life decking game, but there is some fairly robust discard interaction. For example, we have Anubis here. He costs 4 to play. I think he was 2 in the original. I think there's actually like some rebalancing going on the cards for the English release. But you can basically, you play him, you sack him, you pull an ally from your discard pile and put it into play for free. This is at the start of your turn. It's some fun stuff. But what we have today are starter decks. I know I was showing off the cards, but yeah, I still have some of these wrapped up. Each starter deck box comes with 3 copies of each of these decks, and like I said, they are from the 4th set, Brotherhood, which is, again, the original Salo series. I don't know the name, I can't remember the name of who does it now. I know Salo eventually went out of business, which is a bit of a shame, but if I remember correctly, the game is still going. Anyway, so I have to say, I actually really like the design of the box, which is why I wanted to look at one of these on camera. So, like I said, it's still sealed. Let's bust open this old thing. But yeah, all the way from Chi-Chi-Chi-Le-Le-Le. So this is the starter deck battering ram. I just have to say, I love how this box is designed, because it kind of looks like a spell component pouch or something magical in there, with how it kind of looks like has the fake like book binding, or this is like a decorator, like artsy box, or like a leather case or something. But I love how it actually has this flap on here. I love this design. You don't really see clever die cutting like this anymore. So what happens is you have the wing that acts as a brake to make it so that this box closes solid. This is contrary to how a lot of other games do it, where it actually just has kind of the lid that like slots in the top there, and I'm not a fan of that. You risk smashing into your cards, and this just kind of wraps over the top without digging into your cards. So I really like this die cutting. I like this a lot. So let's have a look inside, or perhaps a quick look on the back. So this is battering ram, quick attack. Oh, each of them has a list of what they do on there. So you have executioner, which is discard. You have mercenaries, which is mixed strategy, and you have Sibylla, which is gold destruction. So there are a number of strategies in this game. So Inti is not included in the Sibylla deck, but he definitely falls under the category of gold destruction. He's unique, so I think you can only have one copy of him in your deck. Same with Anubis. But if you can get Inti to hit the field fairly early on, that can hit your opponent with a massive disadvantage, unless they're using this deck, because they get Maui. And Maui is a power 4, so all the creatures have a power score on them, and this is simultaneously their attack and defense. So they attack they would attack the opponent. The opponent can decide who to block it with. Although another thing is all creatures have trample. So if I were to block with Carl over here, ha! I'm Carl! I just love this card. If I were to send out Carl with his power of 2 to block Maui with his power of 4, Carl would be destroyed by 2 damage coming off of Maui, and the remaining 2 would go on to my deck, which would mill off the top. Although you'll notice Maui is power 4, but he has a cost of 0. Maui is incredibly strong, although in order to play him, I have to ruin 2 cards off the top of my deck. That's in sticking with the theme of your deck being a castle. The milling is instead ruining, and I have to discard a card from my hand. So he has a price elsewhere. I'm seeing a lot of like really cool aggro cards that have this sort of thing. Like we have Lester over here. We have Carl and we have Lester. Oh wow, such fantastic names. You have to discard 2 cards to play Lester. I think Maui is probably the better bargain, because 2 life points is worth way more than a card in the a card in the hand is worth a lot more than 2 life points. So Maui is generally better than Lester all around. But yeah, this is, if you want to say that this is a deck about aggro, leading off with a character like this definitely fits the bill for the idea of aggro here. What do we have next? We have Reuploaded, and it's a little hard to read. I don't know if you can see the hollow foil effect going on here, but it's kind of like, it kind of almost looks like cobblestones, and it's textured too. This is actually these are all textured foil, and you can actually see how they've how each one is specifically done. You can see how the picture and the text box and the flavor text has no instructions on it at all. Reuploaded may attack the turn it comes into play. So yes, this is also a game that uses Summoning Sickness, and that is a card with haste. And then we have Susano, the god of storms exiled from this world. So this is, they call him Susano here. I think it's supposed to be Susano is the name he's more oftenly known for. The god of storms exiled from this world transforms himself into a ferocious samurai. I'll have to see if Susano is his own character, but Susano may attack the turn he comes into play, and Susano may bear any number of weapons. So we could line Susano up with like a million of these dagger and stakes. It's like, oh, hammer and stakes. It's like, oh, you better stay back, man. You don't want to know what I'm gonna do here. Rarity indicator is here, although you don't really need it for these types of cards, but the common ones are blue, the uncommon ones are red, and the rare ones are gold and also super foily. And here we have the gold. The gold in the decks, it's all the same, but yeah, it just has a little gold icon up here that's used to pay the costs here. This deck comes with 15, and they're mostly like locations and treasures, like Usmal, and Tenochtitlan, which is Mexico City. The peanut color, the ring, the heavenly portal, all sorts of things. Golden coins, magic lamp, vampire shield, turquoise diamond. So these are literally just treasures that allow you to do things. You'd think something like staff would actually be a weapon, but nope, it's gold, cathedral, and all that. Is that supposed to be Notre Dame? It kind of looks like Notre Dame. So now we have some creatures. We have the zombies. Zombies cannot be affected by talismans. If Zamedi attacks, he may not regroup on your next turn. So Zamedi is power 5 for cost 3. Got a couple of these. Got Lester. Of course we have Lester. We have Fairy Warrior. If Fairy Warrior attacks, your other attacking allies are unblockable until the final phase. So that's another really heavy aggro card. Mockery Gnomes, although they look more like goblins. To put Mockery Gnomes into play, you must destroy one of your allies. I don't know if this deck... If there are cards that have a benefit from hitting the discard pile, that's a shoo-in for these. We have Icarus, although Icarus is a talisman. So yeah, even the talismans are named after famous characters or locations. We have Hephaestus, who also allows me to do that. Allows me to... play only during Talisman War. Talisman War is the term for the battle step. So what happens is your attackers go out, then you declare blockers, and then it becomes Talisman War, where you play the cards that offer the temporary boosts. The Black Soul Bearer is +1 strength for each card in one opponent's hand. Of course, we have Nymphs, Griffins, Fenris, the Lion's Heart, the Berserker, and of course the Full Moon. So I like this deck construction when it comes to things like aggro, having creatures that hit above their cost class and all sorts of stuff like that. So this is a really nice deck here. I think it's pretty cool. I've actually been trying to see what kinds of decks I can build, and Maui is definitely a character in that deck, along with Dagger and Stakes, because Bear cannot be blocked by allies whose strength is greater than 3. Put that on Maui, and he either has to be blocked by a bunch of weak characters or nothing at all. So, yeah, Hammer and Stakes is actually a good match for Maui. I like aggro decks, but yeah, I think it's a neat idea. I've actually heard a couple interviews for a game you might have heard of called Force of Will, which is sort of the modern, sort of less expensive Magic the Gathering alternative. That a lot of people found the use of familiar characters inviting, and that might apply here as well. Like the Sun God Inti or Maui or all of those, Anubis. The fact that they're just straight up unapologetically using it. Also, Gypsy's Oracle. A lot of although I believe the term you're supposed to use these days is Romani. My apologies. But, yeah, and of course, each one comes with a rule book. That's how I know all of this. Although, I actually learned the rules by translating the more modern site. Although, apparently, the game fell victim to a lot of power creep. And I saw a card called La Tirana, which says, yeah, probably was. Because it was a power 7 for cost 2 with no penalties that actually had the ability... let's see, what was the ability? Oh, Exhumar. It actually had the ability Exhumar, which is Spanish for exhume, so you could play it from the discard pile. So I don't know if that's a card from the more modern set. If I can get my hands on some cards from the more modern setups, I'll see that. Because I am seeing some clear strategies here, even if there aren't, like, clear card interactions, like archetypes or what you would normally expect. Where's Fairy Warriors? Cards like Maui combined with cards like Fairy Warriors, that makes a lot of sense. Cards that are aggressive cards that I can play for really cheap, combined with a card that I can use to make them unblockable. Hammer and Stakes has the same thing. It's like nobody wants to come close to him, and that's literally its card effect. Fasten the beast to the soil for his soul to rest. After that, liberate your spirit and purify it in the fire. He's doing some serious purifying there. But yeah, another neat thing that the game does is you actually start the game with 1 gold. So you start at 1 and you actually move to 2 on turn 2, assuming you draw the cards that you need. So it's an interesting kind of system. It's pretty basic in the state I have it here. It's pretty much purely about the card designs and the interaction, but I think it seems, the impression I'm getting here, the impression I've gotten from the cards I've managed to obtain, it seems like a pretty solid game design to me. So yeah, I think it's pretty neat. If I can manage to get my hands on some more recent cards, I understand a functional amount of Spanish. I could probably translate those for you. And I am certainly open to the idea of looking at more card games from around the world. It's entirely possible that my 7 Deadly Sins maybe don't have quite the same applications when looking at card games made in places other than the United States or Japan. So yeah, until next time, this is Myths and Legends, also known as Mitos Y Leyendas, and until next time, this is Kohdok signing off.